Most people don't lack motivation. They lack clarity. They wake up every day reacting to the world, chasing distractions, answering everyone else's demands, and then wonder why they feel exhausted, overwhelmed, and unfulfilled. But the truth is, until you decide what really matters to you, and I mean deeply matters to your soul, your future, your vision, you will keep giving away your power to things that don't. The difference between a fulfilled life and a frustrated one is focus. Not random, scattered focus, but intentional, laser sharp, emotionally connected focus. Because where your focus goes, your energy flows. And where your energy flows, your life grows. So today isn't just about motivation. It's about making a decision. A decision to trade distraction for direction. To eliminate what's stealing your greatness. To commit fully and completely to what actually matters to you, nothing else. Most people walk through life with a fog over their eyes, not because they lack vision, but because they lack clarity. They're chasing 10 things at once, responding to everything, pulled in every direction, except the one that actually matters. And then they wonder why they're tired, why they feel behind, why they're not fulfilled. It's because their energy is scattered, their mind is cluttered, they're moving without direction, without purpose, without a clear target. And here's the truth, you cannot hit a target you cannot see. You cannot create a life of meaning if you don't know what that meaning is for you. That's why clarity is power. When you know what truly matters to you, everything begins to align. Your choices become easier. Your distractions become irrelevant. You stop saying yes to things that drain you, and you start committing to the things that actually move you forward. Most people aren't tired because they're doing too much. They're tired because they're doing too many of the wrong things. Things that don't serve their future, their values, or their calling. But when you become crystal clear on what you want, what you believe in, and what you stand for, something changes. You begin to protect your focus like your life depends on it, because it does. You don't need more time. You don't need more motivation. You need more clarity. The moment you define what matters to you, not what matters to your parents, your friends, your culture, or your past self, but what truly matters to you, you begin to tap into a level of energy that's no longer fueled by pressure, but by purpose. Purpose-driven energy is the most powerful force you can unlock. It will drive you when you're tired. It will lift you when you're down. It will pull you through fear, through rejection, through uncertainty, because your mind is no longer debating the direction, it's locked in. Clarity gives you leverage, because once you know what matters, you start measuring everything against it. Is this helping me become the person I'm committed to be? Is this relationship in alignment with the life I'm building? Is this habit reinforcing the identity I've chosen, or is it dragging me back into mediocrity? These are the kinds of questions people who are clear ask themselves every day. And because of that clarity, their decisions become sharper, faster, more intentional. They waste less time. They move with confidence. They stop second-guessing themselves because their choices are rooted in something deeper than comfort or convenience. They're rooted in purpose. But here's what most people don't want to admit. Clarity takes courage, because to get clear on what matters to you, you have to be willing to let go of what doesn't. That might mean walking away from what's familiar. That might mean changing the rules you've lived by for years. That might mean disappointing people who've benefited from your confusion. Because when you get clear, you stop living for everyone else's approval. You stop chasing what looks good and start building what feels right. You stop reacting and start designing. Clarity is not something you stumble into. It's something you create. You create it by asking better questions. You create it by slowing down and listening. Not to the noise around you, but to the truth within you. You create it by getting honest about what you're tolerating that you no longer want to. You create it by imagining the life you were meant to live and then asking, what would I have to focus on today to make that vision real? This is not theory. This is not philosophy. This is strategy. This is how people break cycles. This is how people go from stuck to unstoppable. Because the world will constantly try to pull your attention away It will seduce you with distractions, convince you to settle for less, tempt you to stay in the gray area of kind of knowing what you want. But that's where dreams die, in the gray. You want to come alive? Get clear, get precise, get obsessed with what lights your soul on fire. Get specific about what you're willing to fight for, what you're willing to sacrifice for, what you're no longer available for. Because when you define what matters, every single day you are faced with a choice to either take command of your focus or hand it over to the noise around you. And let's be honest, distraction is everywhere. It's built into our culture. It's on your phone, in your inbox, in your feed, in your conversations. It's that constant stream of things screaming for your attention that don't actually deserve it. But here's what people don't understand. Distraction isn't just an inconvenience. It's a thief. It steals your time, your energy, your growth, and ultimately your life. The worst part? Most people are letting it happen. Not because they're lazy, not because they're weak, but because they haven't made a decision. Distraction only has power over a mind that hasn't decided what it's here for. When you haven't made a firm decision about what your life is about, you'll find yourself drifting, reacting, scrolling, dabbling, settling. You'll confuse being busy with being productive. You'll tell yourself you're just exploring, just staying informed, just relaxing. But deep down, you know the truth. You're avoiding the thing that actually matters. You're numbing the discomfort of progress with the comfort of distraction. And here's the painful truth. You're not overwhelmed because there's too much to do. You're overwhelmed because you haven't decided what deserves your energy. That's it. Decision is the ultimate filter. When you truly decide, distractions die. Options disappear. Your brain stops negotiating with mediocrity. You no longer waste time wondering if this is the right moment or whether you're ready or if someone else might not like it. No. Decision ends debate. Decision creates focus. Decision builds momentum. Think about this. Every major transformation in your life didn't start with more information. It started with a decision. A moment where you said, enough, this ends here, or this begins now. It didn't matter if you had it all figured out. It didn't matter if the timing was perfect. You made a decision, and that decision shifted your trajectory. That's what you need to do when distraction creeps in. You need to make a real decision about what you're going to give your life to. And let's be clear, when I say decision, I don't mean interest. Most people are interested in changing their life, interested in getting healthier, interested in building something great. But interest doesn't change your life. Commitment does. Decision does. Interest watches YouTube videos. Decision builds routines. Interest makes excuses. Decision finds a way. Interest plays when it's easy. Decision shows up when it's hard. So if you're tired of feeling scattered, if you're sick of starting and starting again, stop trying to manage your distractions. Make a real decision about what matters more, because every distraction has one goal: to rob you of the present moment. And if you lose the present, you lose your power. You can't create from the past. You can't act in the future. The only place you can shift your life is now. But distraction pulls you out of now. It convinces you that you'll do it later, that you can multitask, that it's just 5 more minutes. But you and I both know 5 minutes turns into an hour, into a day, into a week, and suddenly the year is gone and nothing has changed. So how do you beat distraction? You trade it for decision. You wake up and you decide, this is what I'm committed to today. You don't need to decide the whole future, just the next move, the next hour, the next priority. You decide what matters and you build a wall around it. You protect it with everything you've got. Because if you don't, the world will steal it from you. Not out of malice, but out of momentum. Because if you don't drive your day will drive you. If you don't dominate your focus, distraction will dominate you. And remember, distraction doesn't always look like chaos. Sometimes it looks like opportunity. Sometimes it looks like helping someone else when you haven't helped yourself. Sometimes it looks like busy work that makes you feel important but doesn't move the needle. So don't just ask, is this a bad thing? Ask, is this the right thing? Is this aligned with the decision I've made about my future? Because that's the game changer. When you stop evaluating your life based on what feels urgent and start evaluating it based on what you decided matters most. And yes, you're going to get pulled. You're going to be tempted. You're going to fall back into old patterns from time to time. That's okay. The point isn't to be perfect. The point is to decide again. Every time you feel yourself drifting, you anchor back to your decision. You remind yourself, I already chose. I already committed. I already said, this is who I am. This is what I do. And the more you do that, the stronger your focus becomes, the more automatic it becomes. Eventually, it's not even effort anymore, it's identity. Because at the end of the day, distraction is not just an external force. It's an internal agreement. It's a permission slip you give to whatever is easiest in the moment. And the only way to break that agreement is with a stronger one, a decision that nothing else is more important than your purpose, that nothing else deserves your focus more than the life you're here to build. When you make that kind of decision, not once, but daily, consistently, fiercely, distraction doesn't stand a chance. You don't just get more done. You become someone who cannot be pulled away from what matters. You become focused, intentional, unstoppable. And that's the person who changes everything. Your life is always moving in the direction of your dominant focus. Whatever you consistently give your attention to, whether consciously or unconsciously, that's what you begin to create more of. It's not some vague, inspirational idea. It's a fact. Where focus goes, energy flows. And where energy flows, results grow. If you want to change your life, the first thing you must change is what you're consistently focusing on. Not once, not when you're inspired, but moment to moment, day after day. Because the quality of your focus determines the quality of your life. Most people don't realize they're focusing on the wrong things until it's too late. They're focused on what they don't want, on what's missing, on what could go wrong, on who hurt them, on what they fear, and then they wonder why they feel stuck, drained, anxious, or uninspired. But it's not a mystery. It's math. When you give your focus to problems, you magnify problems. When you give your focus to limitations, you increase your sense of limitation. Your mind, your emotions, your energy, they're following your attention like a spotlight. Whatever you shine that light on begins to grow and take over your perception of reality. But here's the powerful part. Focus is a choice. At any moment, you can shift it. You can redirect that spotlight to what's possible, to what's working, to what you want to build. You can train your brain to notice opportunity instead of only danger. You can recondition yourself to respond with courage instead of fear. The moment you consciously choose your focus, you take your power back. You stop being a victim of circumstance and you become the architect of your future. Let me be clear. This is not about denying reality. It's not about pretending life is always perfect. It's about deciding what part of reality you will give your energy to. There will always be problems. There will always be uncertainty. But if you keep staring at what's wrong, you'll be paralyzed. If you focus on the next step, the next decision, the next action you can control, you'll gain momentum. Focus turns chaos into clarity. It turns fear into strategy. It turns helplessness into drive. The problem is never just the problem. It's how long you stare at it. People with powerful lives don't have fewer challenges. They have stronger focus. They've trained themselves to shift attention quickly. When something goes wrong, they acknowledge it, learn from it, and then immediately recenter on the solution. They don't feed the fear. They don't spiral into doubt. They know that every second they spend focused on the problem without a plan is energy wasted. They choose to feed the part of the situation that leads forward. That's the difference. And this applies to every area of your life. If you focus on what's wrong in your relationship, you'll find plenty of things to be upset about. But if you focus on what's wrong in your relationship, what you want to grow, suddenly the energy shifts. If you focus on how hard your goals are, you'll feel overwhelmed. But if you focus on why they matter, why you started, who you're becoming, suddenly you feel lit up again. The situation might be the same, but the meaning changes with your focus. And meaning is everything. The story you tell yourself is built from the details you choose to focus on. So ask yourself honestly, what have you been focusing on lately? And is it empowering you or draining you? Is it helping you grow or is it keeping you stuck in survival? Because focus is not just about productivity, it's about identity. Whatever you focus on consistently, you become. If you keep focusing on how tired you are, you become someone who has no energy. If you focus on how unfair life is, you become someone who's always in a battle. But if you focus on what you can control, what you can give, what you can build, you become someone who's driven, resourceful, and unstoppable. You don't have to wait for life to get easier to shift your focus. You don't need more time, more money, or a perfect environment. You need to decide what matters most to you and give it your attention like your life depends on it, because it does. Focus is the currency of your future. You spend it every day. And just like with money, if you spend it on junk, you can't be surprised when your life feels cluttered and empty. But if you invest it in purpose, in discipline, in love, in growth, your life will reflect that back to you. And it's not just about big goals. It's about small, daily choices. When you wake up in the morning, where does your mind go first? Are you focusing on gratitude or stress? Are you focusing on what's possible or on what's missing? Those first moments shape your emotional state, and your state shapes your entire day. That's why the most successful people in the world guard their focus like their life depends on it, because they know it does. They build routines, habits, and environments that protect their attention. They eliminate distractions. They say no to things that don't align with their vision. They don't let the world hijack their mental bandwidth. They focus on what matters. Because here's the truth. There will always be noise. There will always be something trying to pull your focus away. But the person who wins is the one who knows what to ignore, the one who trains their mind to come back to the mission, the one who knows that while you can't control everything, you can control what you give your energy to. And that's where real power lives. That's how you move from chaos to clarity, from average to extraordinary. You master your focus and you master your life. You will never create a life that's truly your own until you stop living by someone else's script. Every day, people make decisions not based on what they deeply desire, but on what they think they're supposed to do. They chase approval, avoid judgment, stay inside the lines drawn by society, culture, family, and even their own outdated beliefs. And the result? They feel disconnected. They look successful on the outside, but feel lost on the inside. That's what happens when your focus is shaped by outside expectations instead of inner intention. The truth is, you cannot live with fire if you're constantly adjusting your flame to keep other people comfortable. You cannot rise into your highest potential if you're spending your energy trying to fit into someone else's mold. The moment your focus is on trying to please everyone, you lose yourself. You dilute your power. You trade authenticity for approval. And here's the kicker. No matter how hard you try, someone will still disapprove. So if that's the case, you might as well be disliked for being real instead of loved for being fake. But most people don't slow down long enough to ask, what do I really want? Not what did I learn to want? Not what do people expect from me? Not what looks good on paper. What do I want? What actually lights me up? What matters to me when the world is quiet, when I'm alone with my thoughts, when I'm honest with myself? That question is the beginning of freedom. That question is the first brick in building a life that's truly yours. And until you answer it, you'll keep chasing things that feel empty. Keep checking boxes that don't move you. Keep grinding through a life that was never aligned with your truth to begin with. You weren't born to live someone else's version of success. You weren't designed to meet the standards of people who've never lived a day in your shoes. You're here to live a life that's aligned with your vision, your purpose, your values. And that begins with a decision to shift your focus inward, to stop obsessing over what they think and start getting obsessed with what you think, with what you believe, with what your soul is whispering, even if no one else understands it yet. This is where real power begins, when you focus on living from your truth, not from your conditioning. Because let's face it, most of our lives are shaped by patterns we didn't choose, beliefs passed down to us, expectations programmed into us, rules written by people who never asked what makes you feel alive. And unless you interrupt that pattern with intention, you'll spend your entire life playing roles instead of being real. You'll say yes when you mean no. You'll stay quiet when your voice is needed. You'll follow paths that look good but feel wrong. And over time, you'll start to wonder why success doesn't feel like fulfillment. But that's the power of focus. It can shift everything. When you begin to focus on your inner voice more than the external noise, you start building a different life. You start making decisions based on alignment, not obligation. You start choosing growth over comfort, truth over politeness, impact over image. You start honoring your own standards instead of bending to everyone else's. And slowly but surely, your life begins to feel like you, Dot. It begins to reflect your values, your vision, your identity, not a collection of shoulds handed down by people who never truly saw you. This isn't about being selfish. This is about being real. Because when you live in alignment, you become more available for the people around you. You bring your full energy. You inspire others to rise. You stop resenting the roles you're playing and you start serving from a place of fullness instead of obligation. That's what happens when you focus on what really matters to you. You stop leaking energy trying to be everything to everyone, and you start channeling that energy into becoming the person you were born to be. It takes courage, because stepping into your truth means stepping out of the crowd. It means risking judgment, misunderstanding, even rejection. But the pain of living a lie is far greater than the discomfort of being misunderstood. And here's the truth. The people who truly matter, the ones who are meant to be in your life, will not be threatened by your authenticity. They'll be drawn to it. They'll be inspired by it. They'll rise with you, not against you. But even if they don't, you still win, because you're finally living in integrity with yourself. And nothing is more powerful than that. You don't need permission to focus on what matters to you. You don't need consensus. You don't need applause. You just need the courage to look inward and the commitment to act on what you find. That's where all transformation begins, not with a new strategy, but with a new standard. A standard that says, I will no longer betray myself to keep the peace. I will no longer shrink my voice to fit in. I will no longer chase goals that don't feel like mine. I will live from my truth, and I will focus relentlessly on building a life that reflects it. Because at the end of the day, the greatest regret isn't failure. It's living a life that was never. One of the most powerful realizations you can ever have is that clarity doesn't just appear. It's something you create. People often sit around waiting for clarity, thinking that someday out of nowhere they'll magically know what to do. They believe the path will suddenly become clear, the fear will vanish, and the right direction will light up in front of them like runway lights on a landing strip. But it doesn't work like that. Clarity is not the starting point. It's the outcome of courageous action, of doing the uncomfortable work, of moving forward even when things feel uncertain. The truth is, most people don't lack clarity. They lack movement. Because clarity is born in motion, not in stillness. When you sit still, overthink, and keep waiting for a perfect answer, your brain just loops the same questions, amplifies your doubts, and digs you deeper into inaction. But when you move, when you try, when you experiment, when you risk making mistakes, you start to learn, you gather data, you begin to uncover what feels right and what doesn't. You don't find clarity by thinking, you find it by doing. And here's what separates the people who thrive from those who stay stuck: the willingness to move without all the answers. They don't wait to feel ready. They don't wait for certainty. They just pick a direction and start walking, because they understand that clarity is a reward for courage. It's not a prerequisite. It's a consequence. And every step forward, even if it's messy, even if it's imperfect, sharpens the vision. You can pivot, you can adjust, you can refine, but none of that happens unless you begin. Clarity also demands that you stop trying to focus on everything, because focus without clarity is just noise. It's scattered energy. It's working hard without moving forward. That's why you have to strip away the distractions. You have to get radically honest about what matters most to you, not what looks impressive, not what makes you feel safe, what matters. That's what you can't stop thinking about, what you'd regret not pursuing, what pulls something deep inside of you to life. When you get clear on that, that's when focus becomes powerful. But to get there, you have to be willing to cut through the clutter. Most people are drowning in options. They think more choice equals more freedom, but it actually creates more paralysis. Too many goals, too many paths, too many opinions, and they end up doing a little of everything and a lot of nothing. The people who create real impact don't chase every shiny object. They don't scatter their attention across 20 priorities. They get clear on one thing, and then they go all in. That's what clarity gives you: direction, momentum, and a reason to say no to everything that doesn't serve your mission. But let's not pretend clarity comes easy. Sometimes, clarity takes work. Sometimes, clarity takes The hardest part isn't figuring out what you want. It's admitting it. It's giving yourself permission to own your desires, to stop watering them down, to stop hiding behind "I don't know," when deep down you do know. You're just scared. Scared that you'll fail, scared that people will judge you, scared that if you admit what you want and don't get it, you'll feel like a fool. So instead, you sit in the fog of confusion, telling yourself the story that it's not clear yet. But the fog doesn't clear by waiting. It clears by walking through it. And yes, sometimes clarity requires you to walk away from good things to make space for the right thing. That's hard. It's easier to cling to what's comfortable, even when it's unfulfilling. But comfort is not the same as clarity. Clarity is choosing purpose over predictability. It's saying, I don't need the whole staircase. I just need the next step. And then taking it with faith, not in perfection, but in your ability to adapt, to grow, to find your way as you go. And the beautiful part, once you start walking in alignment with clarity, everything else gets easier. Decisions become simpler. You stop second guessing yourself. You stop outsourcing your confidence to others, because now you're not just doing what you think you should do, you're doing what you are meant to do. You're no longer driven by fear, you're pulled by vision. That's what clarity feels like. Alignment, congruence, a quiet knowing that you're on the right track even when the road is hard. And remember, clarity doesn't mean you'll never feel doubt. It doesn't mean the path will always be smooth, but it means you'll have a compass, something inside you that says, this is mine, this is worth it, this matters. And when you have that kind of clarity, the setbacks don't shake you. The distractions don't seduce you. The opinions don't sway you, because your focus is anchored in truth. And that truth becomes your power. So if you're in a place right now where things feel foggy, where you don't know exactly what to do, don't wait. Move. Try. Speak. Create. Test. Fail. Learn. Listen. Go within. Because clarity isn't something you find, it's something you earn through commitment. The clearer you are about what matters most, the stronger your focus becomes. And when you combine clarity with focus, you become unstoppable. Not because the world gets easier, but because you get more certain, more aligned, more powerful. And that's when your life begins to take the shape it was always meant to. When you decide to focus on what truly matters to you and only that, something remarkable happens. Your life simplifies, your decisions become easier, and your energy multiplies. One of the most powerful truths in life is this: saying no to the wrong things is what gives power to your yes. Without that, you are living in constant conflict, pulled in 100 directions, reacting instead of creating. You can't build an extraordinary life if your time, focus, and energy are being hijacked by things that don't align with who you are and where you're going. Most people are exhausted not because they're doing too much, but because they're doing too much of what doesn't matter. They're saying yes out of guilt. They're committing out of obligation. They're tolerating noise, distractions, and energy leaks every single day, and then wondering why they feel burned out and off course. It's not always about doing more. It's about doing less of what doesn't serve you so you can do more of what drives you. This isn't about being rude or selfish. It's about being intentional. It's about taking back control of your most precious resources, your time, your energy, your focus. You have a limited amount of them each day. And every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with your values or vision, you are saying no to something that does. That's the real cost. Your dreams are being delayed because your attention is diluted. Let's get brutally honest for a second. What are you tolerating right now that you know deep down is stealing your focus? What habits, what relationships, what distractions, what responsibilities have you taken on that are not part of the life you want to live? Because the more honest you are with that answer, the more power you reclaim. Change doesn't start with adding, it starts with subtracting, with clearing, with making space for what matters by removing what doesn't. When you focus only on what truly matters, you eliminate 90% of the noise that's keeping you stuck. You stop trying to do everything and start doing the right things. And suddenly, Your results start to multiply, not because you're working harder, but because your energy is no longer being scattered. You become more present, more effective, more consistent, more driven. You start living on purpose instead of on demand. But this takes discipline because the world is full of things that seem urgent but aren't important. Notifications, requests, trends, other people's agendas. They're all fighting for your attention. And if you're not fiercely protective of your focus, you'll wake up every day reacting to someone else's priorities instead of executing your own. You'll spend your life busy instead of fulfilled, productive but empty, achieving yet disconnected from the why behind it all. This is why focus isn't just a productivity hack. It's a spiritual practice. It's about honoring your purpose with your attention. It's about treating your time like it matters because it does. You don't get it back. Every day is a deposit into the life you're building or a withdrawal into a life that's drift. That's the power of choosing what you don't give your focus to. So how do you build that discipline? You start by getting crystal clear on your values. What matters most to you? Not just your goals, your non-negotiables. What are the principles that guide your decisions? What are the standards you refuse to lower? If you don't define them, the world will do it for you. But once you do, your filter becomes stronger. You know instantly what's a yes and what's a no. You stop needing to explain yourself. You stop apologizing for protecting your time. You live with integrity, and that's where self-respect grows. Next, you ruthlessly audit your life. Look at your schedule, your relationships, your habits, your environment. Ask yourself, is this fueling me or draining me? Is this moving me forward or pulling me sideways? Is this aligned with my future or keeping me locked in the past? If the answer isn't a clear yes, it's a no, because almost right is still wrong. Good enough still steals energy from great. You don't have room for clutter, not when you're building something that matters. Then you commit to boundaries, not just with others, but with yourself. You stop letting fear of missing out dictate your actions. You stop negotiating with distractions. You stop entertaining everything just because it's available. Not everything deserves a response. Not everything deserves your energy. And when you master that, when you become the gatekeeper of your attention, you become unstoppable. Because now you're driving your life instead of being driven by it. And here's the beautiful part. Once you start focusing only on what matters to you, people notice. You become a force. Your clarity becomes magnetic. You stop blending in and you start standing out, not because you're trying to, but because alignment always shines. You attract different opportunities. You develop deeper relationships. You move faster. You think clearer. You feel lighter. Because now your life is no longer weighed down by distractions. It's lifted by purpose. So ask yourself this: what am I ready to let go of? What needs to be cleared, cut, or canceled to make space for what truly matters? Because saying no isn't a rejection, it's a declaration. It's saying I'm no longer available for anything that's not aligned with the life I'm building. It's not just a mindset shift, it's a life shift. That's when you stop surviving and start leading. That's when focus becomes power. And that's when your life begins to reflect who you truly are, one intentional choice at a time.